Hey everybody, and welcome to Satsang. Oh, so good to see you all. I sit here as I watch the people showing up, which I can see before I actually go live. Comments and stuff start showing up just as you make them here, even though I haven't pressed the live stream button yet. And it just fills me up with so much happiness that there are so many that are not only hearing this rather unique message, and but are also responding to it, taking it into their hearts. That it's touched you all enough that it's gotten in. It's being embodied. It's taking shape in your life. It's bringing things to the surface for you that you didn't see before. This is the activity of grace. And that's the only way you can put it, because nobody seeks this path. Nobody seeks this path. It finds you. Nobody sets out to, I think I'm going to dissolve my ego today. I mean, nobody does that, right? Although now the ego death has become kind of an interesting thing to say, because of the extensive use of plant medicine and like, and that's kind of the name given to the experience of the momentary cessation of the activity of the mind we call the ego. But it doesn't really have the kind of effect necessary, because when it reasserts itself, it's completely unseen. There is that moment of utter bliss that happens. But without the substance of this kind of an inquiry behind it, it's regarded as a temporary experience. Oftentimes that happens even when somebody has a great spiritual insight that is not precipitated by some kind of medicine. Or any kind of, people have very spontaneous feelings of just openness and awakeness and freedom. There's an emotional opening that takes place. And when I look around, I see it happening more and more, which simply points my attention to the fact that the only way the ego can be broken out of is when something taps on it from outside. It's the only way it can. It is not capable of bringing down its own house. It's not capable of smelling its own breath. Something from the outside has to penetrate it. And because the ego is nothing but a shell, it is nothing but what can I say? It's just nothing but an imaginary sense of self projected on a bunch of conditioned patterns. It is a functioning of the nervous system that we have mistakenly identified with and created a sense of self out of this very limited bundle, the container of conditioning that is the nature of the human nervous system. When I say we created that sense of self, you didn't even do that. The sense of self was also a spontaneous arising, also within the nervous system, that it's part of the human mechanism to create a sense of I. And prior to anything kind of piercing through that, at the center of this is this, I call it the original innocence, the original you, that is simply not aware of it. It is just happening spontaneously. And so the process of identification, which is itself the whole structure of the whole human ego, happens all by itself. there's just no awakened being there yet to recognize it as such. That's the whole of it. And you could say that the awakening is something piercing from outside, which is the feeling of grace, the sense of something coming to me, the appearance of a teacher or a guru or something of that ilk. But that's only a representative of out here of what's really happening, and that is the self is waking up to itself. That original innocence is becoming self-aware. And as it does that, the whole structure begins to be called into question. But this structure is so thorough, it is so deeply entrenched throughout the whole body-mind system that it operates even when there is that initial glimpse. When the shell is pierced for a moment and something inside begins to say, feel, oftentimes the first time is kind of a feeling of discomfort. It's like, but something's wrong and I don't know what. Like my frequent metaphor of the whale in the swimming pool. They know something's wrong, but they don't have that capacity that we do to determine what it is. They just kind of have to go with it until they freak out and do something weird, like lions do, the pacing, and whales that will turn on their trainers and things like that, and elephants in captivity and the like, because they don't have quite the capacity we do for self-awareness that allows us to go, what's going on? But at first, that's all we feel is something's not quite right. I don't belong in this family. This job is really uncomfortable. How did I get into this relationship? I don't like my friends. But and it's a feeling, right? It usually doesn't come as a thought. And oftentimes, because it is so uncomfortable and so contradictory to the momentum of what has been our lives, that we just push it aside. We're encouraged to push it aside. Your parents have taught you to push it aside. Oh, no, we don't need any of that. Don't pay any attention to that. Nothing to see here. Move along. But if you're lucky enough for that discomfort to hang around long enough, that our tools of suppression and distraction and anesthetization don't work well enough anymore, and we simply cannot deny something is off. I want more. Now, what happens oftentimes, because it's still not, if that was to happen in an environment that had a rich spiritual tradition, that discomfort would be recognized and fed. Right? It wouldn't be given Ritalin. It would be given a shaman or a guru or someone to guide it through, because it would be recognized for what it actually is, the symptoms of awakening. But in our just disastrously materialistic West, those kinds of things are regarded as a problem, and so we're given drugs and just countless distractions, and always creating more. Every day I hear about some new social network that's emerged, yet another place to become distracted. And so finally, even here in the dense nescience of the West, something breaks through and goes, no, something's really off here, and I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm going to listen. Or you hear somebody speak and go, God, that makes sense. Or something you read in a book or stumble on in one of the social media, in a meme, or a meme that's not just encouraging you to pick yourself up by the bootstraps, or a YouTube video by someone who actually knows what they're talking about. It strikes this chord inside. Yet again, because it's so undeveloped, and we don't live in a culture that even knows what it is, let alone know how to nurture it. Right? We doubt ourselves. We have this sense of conflict, or we may reach for I don't know, some new age thing, or some more fundamentalist thing, or some religious group or something that seem to have an answer to it. And oftentimes it will placate it. It will dull that annoyance for a while. And if you're lucky, it won't be that long. And it'll be back, and you go, I'm supposed to feel this great heavenly joy, and I don't. What's up with that? But if you are fortunate enough that grace, and that's what it is, persists, and your noticing of it persists, you'll eventually start knocking from the inside. They say that it takes a baby chick 50,000 pecks on the egg to finally break the egg and get out. What they don't often say is that at the same time, the mother hen is pecking from the outside. The little guy's not doing it all on his own. He's getting help. He's getting help from beyond, from outside the world he could possibly know. This is the role of the teacher, the guru, which is only a manifestation of that voice inside. And if we pay attention, if we're willing to pay attention to what in fact is that discontent, that suffering, and not just try to get rid of it, but try to probe it to its depths, the whole thing will begin to unravel. The whole thing will start to become apparent to you. And at some point, you'll begin to see that the whole structure of your sense of identity was created by the nervous system in response to an environment, and therefore it's arbitrary, it's fictional, it will never be satisfying because it's inherently limited, and the big one, it's not really me. And if that hits you hard enough, the next question is always the same. Well then, who am I? What was here before the conditioning? Obviously, the conditioning all got added on later. The conditioning is just a functioning of the nervous system. But conditioning isn't self-aware. It isn't thinking. It isn't aware of thoughts. It isn't aware of feelings. It's not even aware that it is conditioning. What's that? This is the path of non-dual self-inquiry. Self-inquiry. What is that? What am I? What is it that is aware? It's not aware of me. Conditioning isn't aware of me. I'm aware of it. My hand isn't aware of me. I'm aware of it. I'm the sentience in this robot. I'm the conscious whatever. What is that? Is it just a little piece of something in the brain? Is that all there is to me? Well, then what happens when this all goes away? Then I'm gone? Just oblivion? Is that right? These questions are worth now really taking deep into your soul. And when you do that, even if you don't use the term, who am I, or what's this all about, you are in self-inquiry. You are acting out and embodying the deep desire to know, who am I? Really. Not how I was trained to be, not various thought patterns and assumptions and beliefs I picked up along the way, but prior. That's all added equipment, right? That's all after factory market stuff. What was originally here? And that is the whole emphasis when I do every meditation I've done, and I've done hundreds, thousands really, the stuff in private, hundreds just here in a public forum. And that's all we do. We just go marching back. I'm looking at thoughts. They're not looking at me. I'm looking at emotions. They're not looking at me. I'm looking at sensations. They're not looking at me. They can't be here without me. And you begin to recognize that they're just constantly coming and going, and you're not. So whatever you are, it isn't made of thought, it isn't made of emotion, and it isn't made of sensation. It's something else altogether. And just feeling that sense of being, that presence, without referencing thought, emotion, or sensation, you get a direct line to who you actually are, because that's it. That is who you are. Now that becomes difficult to hold on to, simply because when you say to yourself, well, who am I really? Your mind wants an answer that is something you can look at. And just the sense of being is not something your mind can look at. There's nothing there for it to wrap itself around, to create a story about, to make a cross-reference and an index and categorize and judge. There's nothing there to do that. And of course, there can't be anything that thought could grab a hold of. Simply couldn't. Because it isn't a thing that can be grasped. Because if it is, then it's not you, is it? It becomes something that is perceived, which means, it's, by definition, it's not me. And anything you perceive, you watch it long enough and it will change. This doesn't change. That sense of presence, that sense of being, once you touch it and it's seeing everything else, you notice it never changes. Mind does not know what to do with that. That's you. And if you're willing to stay there and explore this place that appears to be completely empty, there's nothing there to see. If you're willing to do that long enough, that flower begins to unfold. That's the 1,000-petal lotus that begins to unfold. And you be like anything you pay attention to long enough, it begins to show its detail and its nuances. But these will not be details and nuances that are perceivable attributes, something else altogether. And that's why the non-dual path is direct. It is not intellectual. It's not even a teaching, right? It's a pointing. It's just, yeah, but look here. Yeah. And it's a questioning. It's both a meditative looking, right, separate from thought, and it's also a very precise intellectual process, dismantling assumptions when you see what their basis is. That all these assumptions are based on certain ideas I hold about myself. When you see those ideas were accumulated. They were added later. They're not original equipment. Okay, so we can put all of those aside. There's some intellectual precision in that, and a lot of intellectual honesty, because our beliefs, we want to hold on to them. We like them. They make us feel safe, even if they're not true. And there's a whole function of the human brain that does nothing but create stories, right? Because it does not want to not have a story. Once you see that process at work, you see that too is not you. That this is simply the way the nervous system functions. This is where the sense of self came from. And in fact, the entire ego is nothing but a story created by this mechanism simply to try to feel safe and taken care of. Not what I thought I was going to be talking about today, but everything is already spontaneous. So it is. So I'm so happy to be here with you all. And I guess I will now mosey on over to the queue here and see if I bring this in a little bit. Yeah, so I can see it nice and clearly. I got myself a really big screen here so I could see it easier on my little laptop screen. So, hello to you, Rosario in Madrid, Daryl in Maryland, John in Scotland, David and Elaine. Hello to all of my UK folks. There's Dale in Massachusetts, Ava in Poland, Mary in New York, Ursula in Madeira Island, Lisa, hola to you, Hendrik, Lake Constance, also in Germany, New York. There's another New Yorker, some Susan. There's a Susan Aaron. Hello, Susan. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. There's Brent in LA, Dorten, Denmark. Neutrality says greetings. Greetings to you. And hello, Babaji and all. Hello, Jennifer. There's Carl Lucy in Ireland. I have to see Ireland. I just have to. Kimberly. Hello, Kimberly. And Mary Sykes. So ego identification is a part of the awakening process. It is the thing needed to catapult us to truth. Yes. It is a part of the process. It is the ego and the identification with ego are the natural functioning of the nervous system, of the whole body-mind mechanism. The animals can survive without the development of an ego. They don't. Every critter that exists has a sense I am, right? Only the human being has a sense of identity built on it. The dog doesn't have a sense of identity. They're pure being, right? They know that they are, but they don't know that they know that they are. Whereas the human being does. And so it happens automatically, right? This is who I am, this is what I do. All of those things accumulate, as does the identification with it. Because the identification with the self is a primary mechanism of the entire system for self-protection. It allows you to function in the world, right? When you show up as somebody, always, right? And so this is part of the functioning of life. Right? The consciousness that you are doesn't question it. It just goes along with it. And so who you actually are has projected the sense of self, which is real, onto this functioning, which includes the identification, which is the particular form of thought that is the egoic mind. And that's all it is. It's a subset of all the thoughts you have. But because the nervous system needs a central point of organization, that's it. It creates one. It creates it and believes it to be real. It needs to, because if it knows it's a belief, it gets very shaky. What do you mean it's a belief? It's got to be true, right? Just challenge an evangelical, and you can see how quickly that defensiveness comes up, because the whole sense of existing, their safety and their even eternal safety depends on the truth of that belief. And so they believe it to be true. It doesn't even matter how much evidence to the contrary they get, because they can't let it go. You can't let it go till you find something else. And that something else is the awakening. And it begins to emerge and challenge things even before you know it, right? That's the feeling of discomfort. That's the symptom of recovery. Right? It's basically what it is. And so, yes, this process by which we, because of the great human gift of self-awareness, this process by we recognize that which is the human or the animal instinct and the unconscious, turns us, as we awaken to that, we turn towards, well, then what am I? And that's the spiritual rebirth. That is the resurrection. That's what's symbolized in the chakras. The bottom three are the animal nature, including the third, which is the sense of self, the ego, which doesn't really exist in animals, just in humans. But it's part of the human mechanism that allows us to function. And it is that which is spotted at long last by consciousness, and the sense of self is taken out of that sense of identification and begins to turn upward. That's what the heart chakra represents, that point of rebirth. That's why it's symbolized with two snakes around it. Snakes shed their skin and they symbolize rebirth, resurrection. And this is the resurrection into eternal life, into the real life. It is the rebirth into the spiritual being. This is the awakening, and it's, it's laid down in all sorts of different symbolic systems. And so this action of seeing that eventually replaces the ego as the point of organization, and the nervous system begins to organize around who you really are. And this is the true dissolution of the egoic mind. A momentary setting aside of it is a great experience, but it's not it. And without some preparation, it will be regarded as nothing but an experience, and the person will get back to trying to improve themselves psychologically and emotionally and that sort of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the truth. It's just not awakening. It's not going to get you there. And it doesn't know that, right? Because it's still in the realm of identification with a particular form. It's a better identification. It's more functional. It's more happy. It's more kind and compassionate. But it is still a story. It does not yet have its solid ground. But when that begins to happen, that real awakening takes place, and we really begin to recognize it for what it is. The momentum of it will continue for a while, which is okay, because not yet. You just have to get stronger at it. It helps get you to abide there more fully. You lay down roots in this place. It's not just an experience you have. You're taking up residence here, and it becomes the ground of being, not just some wonderful experience you have. At which point, little by little, the functioning or the activity of the nervous system that we have called the egoic mind, which isn't a mind at all, it's just a robotic functioning, is seen as such. And all of that activity starts to move towards the real center, the real I. And this is the transformation of the life that people see. This is where genuine compassion and brotherly love and sisterly love and begins to emerge. This is where wisdom begins to emerge. Our ability to discern things becomes clear. And this is the open door that eventually leads to Buddhahood, to full awakening. So yes, it is a part of the process that is unique to human beings. And it is here as human beings that the potential for full awakening can happen, because it's the ordinary human being that is the Buddha. That's the realization. Thanks, Mary. Hello, Robbie in Romania. Susha, hello again. You begin to question most things. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And the questioning is the beginning. And at first, we don't really know what the answer is. You don't realize that you are the answer. The answer is always going to be something. I spent a lot of time thinking there was a truth I was going to find. So wait, damn, I am it. looking all over the place for what you're looking for is where you're looking from. You are the answer, but we don't know that at first. Right? So we get seduced, we get tricked, we get fall into all sorts of little things here and there, but it's what happens. It's okay. It's okay. It's part of the process. That which started the process will fulfill it. We think, oh God, I've got to do this. How am I going to do it? You don't. You didn't do that first step out of the darkness. You were carried. And according to Balyani, God takes the last step in that journey that never really happened. Thank you, Sue. I think I saw something about on there. Let's see. Dale Wiggins, if we weren't this body ego, is there any experiential or verifiable proof that it's one consciousness observing everything in the universe? Not in the traditional sense of how we think about, the subject-object relationship, classical analysis. There's no way to prove that. You don't know, you can't prove that I'm conscious. You can't. You can only prove that you are. You are the only self you know. Every other self, every other being you encounter may or may not exist as a self-aware sentient being. Just like you're in your dreams at night, it appears as though they do, but when you wake up, you find they don't. There isn't anybody there. I'm having a dream, I'm hugging somebody, and I'm scaling a mountain in a dream. I'm not there, the mountain's not there, the person's not there, the conversation's not there, none of it's there. It is all a subjective creation of the mind that in the dream state, you don't recognize as such. But when you wake up, you recognize it was completely fictitious, completely within myself. Well, this is what we're dealing with here. And the metaphor of a dream is a common one amongst spiritual teachers because it's a breadcrumb. It's what we've been showed. Look, this is very possible, right? So when you really look at it, there is not a single thing you experience in this world can verify anything about consciousness, because the only consciousness in which it is perceived is you. So the real question is, does anything exist other than myself? Right? And if you make it too intellectual, you get a solipsism, which is madness. You just have to look at the facts. Like any good scientist would do. What are the facts? I can't know that. All right. What can I know? Well, I know that I am. No doubt there. In fact, it's the only thing I know. It's the only thing I am absolutely sure exists. No devil, however powerful and clever, could convince me that I existed if I didn't. So I know this. So now, if you get to there, right, and you can really quiet the mind and no, this can't be, there's got to be, and it'll keep doing that. But it's like, it doesn't matter how much evidence comes from the outside. In order for that evidence to have any validity, I have to verify that there's an outside from which it can come. I have to. And I can't. I cannot step outside of my consciousness and look at my consciousness and its experience from another place. I cannot do that. So that whole line of classical analysis is irrelevant when it comes to this question. Everything else in the universe you could study like that, but not you. And so you then start from there and begin to okay, what do I do know about consciousness? And bringing your attention to consciousness itself. Now, this is not all that easy to do because we're so used to mixing up consciousness and what it is conscious of, awareness and what it is aware of. We're so engaged with the content of consciousness that we don't just try to trim all that away to get to consciousness itself. That is, get to myself, the one thing in the universe I cannot perceive. Okay, I can't perceive me. So I'm not verifying my existence based on perceiving myself because I can't. So how do I know that I am? Now, it's got to start there. And from there, you can then begin to explore consciousness. Does it have any boundaries? And if I found a boundary, wouldn't I be something I'm simply perceiving? And if I found a boundary, there'd have to be something beyond it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be about a boundary. Can I actually find a boundary to consciousness separate from all of its content? It's like, can I find a boundary to space if I take everything out of the space? Space-like, consciousness is space-like. That's also another metaphor that's used. So now you're looking at it, right? From your own direct experience, you go, consciousness doesn't have a boundary. I don't want to lead you, but if it doesn't, then the only conclusion that can be drawn is there's only one of them, because there's no boundary. There can only be one. Now, what does that make of everything else? Well, this is the whole process of the inward and the outward path, right? The Vedantic and the Tantric. I mean, what do you do with all the content of consciousness? Well, then where the hell did it come from? Consciousness itself has no boundaries. Then everything I'm experiencing, all the content, is in it. It's not coming from outside of it. It's not coming from outside of it. It's not made of anything. There's no matter or anything to make it out of. And so if it's not coming from the outside, because there is no outside to it, then the nature of every object in the universe is consciousness. In fact, consciousness is the substance of all things, not just the perceiver of it, but the very essence of it. So everything is perceived by, in consciousness, and is made of consciousness, the real substance. Now notice, I didn't use any kind of subject-object logic. I was just looking at what I knew for sure. Follow the same path. See what happens. Because you have to do this on your own. Because the mind will take everything I say and turn it into a concept. And it may even satisfy it for a while intellectually, because it is intellectually satisfying. But that won't break open the egg. Neutrality. Thanks, Dale. Neutrality says, I doubt science can check what nothing is. Science not only can't check it, it assumes the basis of our modern science is completely, it's physical realism, it's material. Everything is matter, period. So anything that does not exude, that cannot be measured, does not exist. This is the premise of science. And it does that for everything. It doesn't exist, right? Because you can find no material correlation, you can find no material structure for it. That's why they disregard all the Asian medical practices, like acupuncture and that sort of thing, because acupuncture says that there are these meridians running through the body. Modern anatomy can find no such structure, therefore it doesn't exist. Okay? Now the problem with consciousness is different, because nobody can deny consciousness exists. Right? So again, no, it doesn't exist. Well, there are some, right? That there is no, it's a robot, right? Everything's a robot. There's no sense of self. Now, anybody can look at themselves and see consciousness does exist. There isn't a self-awareness here. That is a foregone conclusion. And so science comes to the conclusion that yes, consciousness exists. There must be a structure for it. We just haven't found it yet. That's how they do it, because you can't deny. It's everything else you could deny, you could explain away, but not consciousness. You can't do it, right? It's here. It's real. And so there's this assumption, and and it's gotten kind of new agey too. The amygdala and the pineal gland and the vagus nerve. There's all sorts of things now. Oh, this is it, the seat of consciousness, and completely dismissing the possibility that something could exist and be non-physical. It's a simple alternative to look at. That it is a substance in and of itself. They'd rather believe in dark matter than in consciousness being a self-existent essence. But, okay, you cannot possibly know it through the scientific method. If you take any structure in the brain and say this is consciousness, I go, well, what part of it? Right. Well, it's just a little tiny part, or it's this whole thing functioning together. So this is me, right? Everything I've ever known, felt, done is there. When you look at it, it's absurd, right? But it's where you have to go if you cannot accept the possibility that consciousness is non-physical, which means it doesn't have a location. It is animating this body, but it's not in it. It permeates it. It is in it, out of it, around it, through it. Like the fish in the ocean. It's everywhere. Like the air we're breathing. It's everywhere. It's like space. It's everywhere. Consciousness is that. And if you explore it enough, you'll find that out for yourself. You'll find that out. You'll come to know that in the Vedantic way. That is, you know it in your heart. So yes, science does not have the capacity to do this exploration, because you cannot explore yourself as one thing exploring another. That's self-evident. So classical analysis, which will work on any other thing in the universe, does not work on yourself. There has to be another method of doing it. And there is. It's called Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta. It's been around for thousands of years. It's non-dual self-inquiry. Non-dual, not two. I can't study it as two. I have to study as something that's not two, which is a completely different approach. And it does exist. It's what I teach all the time. It's what I learned. Thank you, neutrality. It's getting cold. I'm talking too much. Mary, the fault is obviously needed to see the truth. Yes, until you go beyond both. As Rumi beautifully put it, so beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. It's beyond all the opposites. But without the opposites, there could be no expression of that which is beyond all opposites. The yin and the yang form one thing. It's kind of like, how do you define humanity without male and female? We cannot think of humanity as a thing, can we? We have to see its various aspects in order for us to have any idea. And you realize they're so varied and so wide that you can't define it. It's simply a word that, yes, it's something that characterizes everything else. The quality of humanness characterizes masculine and feminine, right? Well, the quality of being characterizes everything, and you can't see it. You can't know it. You can't touch it. It is beyond all opposites, and it is the source of all the opposites that makes the infinite manifestation possible. And so it is one with it. It is not two. It is the substance of that which is perceived. And the act of perceiving is the act of being dividing itself into parts, while at the same time never dividing, because it's indivisible. It's kind of the Big Bang, where the one just explodes into many, but never stops being the one. We still call it the universe. So, yes. Thanks, Mary. John, is there any evidence that we have had past lives? If so, who or what is reincarnating? I always have a lot of fun with this one. Because from my point of view, in terms of teaching this kind of inquiry, it doesn't matter ultimately whether there are or not, because this moment is all that's needed. So I say, okay, there is the reincarnating, right? And isn't it interesting that, okay, this is one of many lives that I have. And in this life, I was absolutely convinced that this is who I was, right? I'm this guy, I'm male, I'm this age, I was born here, this other thing, has had all these kinds of experiences, right? Now, if there is a reincarnation, right, that means in a past life, I felt exactly the same. I was just as strongly convinced that that's who I was, whoever it was, right? I was an Asian peasant girl, right? I don't know. I was a creature on another planet. Who knows, right? Who knows, right? So when you see that, the question of whether or not it actually happens, right, it becomes a moot point. It's not important to know for the sake of discovering who you are. Using that, you can go, okay, well, but obviously there was a conscious awareness in every life I've ever had and an identification. But what was it that went from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime? And who was I in between? when I wasn't that anymore, but I wasn't this yet, who was I then? This is, in Zen they say, who were you before your parents were born? It's a place that if you ponder it long enough, you go beyond the mind, because the mind can't answer that question. It can just project forms and identification onto other lives. And then it can even take pride in it, right? Isn't it funny how in people in past life regressions, they're always somebody like famous and important, right? They never dredge up the lives, you had 180 lives as a meaningless serf, living out a meager and completely uninteresting existence. We don't hear about that. I was Mary Magdalene, or I was Joan of Arc or something, right? The ego loves that kind of thing because it isn't known, and so it can project all sorts of kinds of stuff on there. Now, I've had that all said, again, it is completely irrelevant to the conversation, other than to say, well, okay, if it's the case, there was something that was the same. There was a consciousness then was the same. Gives me more evidence of looking at my own life to see I've gone through multiple lives in this life, the rock and roll drummer and computer architect and, father and all sorts of different. I've had, from a kid onward, we've all gone through different lives. Hell, puberty is just a complete death, and birth is something else, right? Everything changes. So when you look at that in your own life, you can see that there has been this consistent thing that's been there. There's been this perceiving there, this knowingness that's been there, in front of which all of the incredibly constant impermanent changes have been taking place. You can look at that, extrapolate it into past lives, that it was there too, and it was exactly the same, because it's been exactly the same this time. You can extrapolate it into the future. I can't really find an end to it because I can't find a beginning to it. So I'm safe in concluding that it's not going to end, right? That death isn't the end. And I've experienced many deaths in my life. I am nowhere near who I was 20 years ago or 40 years ago, right? Let alone 2,000 years ago. That is, my sense of myself has been constantly changing. What hasn't been? Right? And there's the question. Now, that said, in my healing work with people, when I work with people on their deep traumas and stuff that's blocking their lives and causing problems, we do some very deep inner work using inner reconciliation primarily, but meditation, tapping, and a bunch of things to kind of free up that energy that can release the traumas from the body. I have experienced things that have come up that are an influence in this life that were obviously not originating in this life. They didn't come from there. They were not the result of childhood trauma here. they came with. And in Buddhism, they do talk about this, a level beneath the manifest part of life. They call it the repository consciousness or the storehouse consciousness. In the Hindu tradition, they're called vasanas. That's these energies that continue to crop up. When they get all kind of new aged and distorted out, they become the Akashic records, this thing that knows all the stuff. It's nothing out there at all. It is the energy that gives rise to lifetime after lifetime. And so in Buddhism, they thought it was important enough that it got codified, as it did in Hinduism and the like. So I don't want to just like completely dismiss it. But what happens then, like in Hinduism, not Advaita Vedanta, but in the more traditional forms, it became the caste system, right? So, where you were, this group you were born into, that's the group. You had to live a virtuous life within the context of that group, and then you earned your rebirth into the next, and into the next, and into the next. And even Nisargadatta, I think a student of his made the comment is, what about the people of the West? I mean, are they totally screwed? Is the best they can hope for is to live a good life and you get a rebirth in India? Maybe, but I think you're getting the point. When I'm doing energy healing work, there's no need to go into it, right? Because whatever needs to be released in order for the individual to know more freedom will come up. And because I learned not to assume what it was, I actually converse with the energy itself, to let the energy tell the story, because the trapped energy knows what the story is. I'll never be able to figure out with the mind. Nobody's smart enough to do that. All the psychology books in the world can't do it. But that which is traumatized knows why. And it knows how to get out of it. It knows what it needs to get out of it. So that's what I do. I go to that place and I talk to it. And things have come up. Even really dramatic things of people suddenly are literally experienced being, burned at the stake and, manipulated by, was it Alistair, who's that creepy fellow from like 200 years ago, had all sorts of things going on. Somebody lived in his house, was a follower of his. These things just kind of came up. Are they real? Did they really happen? I don't care. Is the nervous system simply using this as a metaphorical way of communicating? That these very primal energies that they're there before the nervous system is there, right? Is it simply using that as a metaphor to tell its story? I don't care. I treat it as if it's the truth. I just treat it, okay, this is what you're giving me. I'm with you, and I just follow it. And eventually, because I'm willing to do that, I'm not laying anything extra on it. There's an inner environment of safety that gets created, and the energy dissolves. It diversifies. It dissolves because it has enough safety to allow it to do it. Because it's always safety that creates the traumas. So that's kind of all sides of it. In practice, you don't need to know whether it was or not. Just what's here in this moment, right? And just open to the possibility that what we happen to be dealing with in this moment may have nothing to do with the moment itself. It may have nothing to do with your past. May have nothing to do with. It could be something else going on in the world that's reflecting itself in your body. If we'll break down this illusion of us being these separate beings leading separate lives, we begin to see that the whole world is you, and you can't separate your feelings. And in fact, none of them are your feelings. Every feeling, every thought, every sensation is a cosmic event. They don't belong to you at all. Nobody's does. It's just in the sense of consciousness is kind of cherry picked. These I identify, these don't. When you look at the sheer number of thoughts that go by, where they're just all spontaneously arising. Right? So that's where it is. On a personal note, I actually met my mother as a 2-year-old girl. it was crystal clear it was her. So what are you going to do with that little tidbit, right? Nothing. I was just so happy to see her in a family that really loved her and was taking care of her. And she was as precocious and what's the word I'm looking for? Assertive as I knew her to be. And to this day, they refer to her as my mother. And she's about 10 now. She forgot all of that, but yeah. Anyway, I hope that helps, John. Thanks. Susha, accountability feels like suffering, but part of the process of liberation. Well, I put it this way. I don't like the word accountability. Accountability coaches and responsibility and obligations. I don't like that. I think it's more of just is there an intellectual curiosity and honesty that's willing to take a good look at things, right? And you know, when you've painted yourself into a corner, to go, wow, I've painted myself in the corner. I need help, right? Just an honesty about our lives, right? That because that's the heart space that is really the essence of the liberation. It's not the intellect is important, right? To be intellectually honest is important, but you don't have to be intellectually facile or well-educated or anything like that. Matter of fact, a lot of education can get in the way. I found a lot of mine did. My own intellectual curiosity about stuff, just actually a lot of stuff I really didn't need. So, yeah, accountability feels like suffering. Yeah, if you really love what you're doing, it's not going to feel that way, and you don't need to be accountable. If you feel like you have to be accountable, then something's off, right? You know, I don't have to be accountable to show up here, right? Nobody has to hold a gun to my head, right? It's not an obligation, right? And when I can't come for some reason, I feel I don't like it. You know, even if I just need the day off, right? I don't like it. It's like, no, nobody has to force it, right? So let's be clear that we're not burdening ourselves with, oh, I've got to meditate 2 hours a day. I'm not doing the inquiry right. I still like wine, right? I still eat meat. Please don't do any of that stuff. Yeah, none of that's necessary. None of that matters. Those are all just stuff. They'll whatever isn't you will eventually fall away. Just stick to the program. What is really me? And even at first, that question, what isn't really me, isn't going to be as deep as it eventually will be, because there'll be this motivation. Oh, I'm going to ask this and I'm going to have a better life, and my material life is going to be better. And if that's where the motivation is at the time, then great, that's where it is. You work with that. But eventually it becomes deeper and deeper, and you see that a lot of the stuff that we thought was the good life, in fact, was an impediment. It was just baggage. I don't need it. And you begin to jettison that stuff. And the desire for freedom above all else becomes more and more and more one-pointed. And that's what peels everything else away. And notice, you don't have to force it. You don't have to let go of anything in life, right? You know, you didn't have to let go of your childhood toys. Just one day you didn't want them anymore, period. This is the very natural, gentle, loving unfoldment of this kind of practice. So, navigator of self. So, is it the I as opposed to the me? Susan says, wow, so true. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Susan. Yes, Sue. So is it let's not get hung up in the words here, okay? The true I, the true me, is always you. It is the consciousness at the center of this. Whatever is cognizing everything else that goes around, right? Your eye isn't seeing this screen, right? It's collecting light, right? And neither are all the little nerves that are, doing their thing as it gets transferred here and there throughout. There's something that ultimately sees it, right? Now, I say that's not the brain, right? It's consciousness. Whatever that's made of, it's consciousness. That's what I'm referring to. That's the true I. Without that, nothing else, for all intents and purposes, nothing else exists. If there's nothing here to cognize it, right, then nothing exists, right? There has to be something there. Scientists will argue as to what that is, and Vedantists will tell you what it is, right? It's consciousness. But so don't get hung up in the words, right? That is the true I. That is that which we're all aware of. It's self-evident. It's what is perceiving my words right now, seeing the screen, watching my movements, right? Aware of everything else that's in the room. The point of cognition is the true I. Not just, it doesn't take long to recognize, yes, of course. Without that, nothing else is here, right? So now, but in the mind, there is the thought I, the thought me. Now that thought of I is not the same as the I, because even that thought of I is being perceived. But until some awakening takes place, when the thought I appears, the true I thinks that it's talking about myself. The real I that cognizes that I mistakenly believes that the I that's being referred to is itself. But the mind doesn't see the true self. It can't, because it's empty. It's just presence. It isn't a thing to be perceived. And so that I of the mind, or ego, is a bunch of thoughts. It is a kind of a master thought around which a whole bunch of other thoughts have kind of organized themselves. So that I then is, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm white, I'm black, I'm Asian, I live here, I did this, I have this education, I had all these things happen to me in this childhood, these past lives. All of those are thoughts, right? All of which are being perceived by the actual consciousness. Awakening is when the consciousness begins to go, wait a minute, that I'm perceiving, so it can't be me. Which means nothing that I is talking about is me. That's the insight. Now, the process by which all of that gets dismantled can take a little time, because the identification is reflexive. It's just happening like that. But little by little, that isn't me. That isn't me. I thought it was me, but it's not me. Because I'm here looking at it. If I can see it, I can perceive it. It can't be me. So then, who am I? What is this that is doing the perceiving? And little by little, that question becomes more and more focused on the experience of being aware, and less on the ideas about that. And this is the freeing that takes. This is the liberation that takes place until it's complete, until the I has come completely home and no longer makes any reference to anything external. So yeah, so it's this I or that me. It doesn't matter what words you use. Just be really clear about what they mean, right? So I will talk about the false I, or the egoic mind. I will talk about the true I, the true self, Buddha nature, or God, right? The ultimate, right? The self, consciousness, pure awareness, right? Use them in those terms. And even those words, some teachers will use differently. So as long as we're clear, this is the intellectual precision part. As long as we're clear about what these words mean, and so we don't just kind of try to redefine words in order to understand. You don't need that, right? So that word I is important, because that word I is around where all the confusion is. Because most people show up as the I they think they are, right? And therefore embody and act out but only a handful recognize that that's not at all who I am, even though there's habit energy in the body that continues to act that out, but it's not who I am. I'm the one that's aware of it. Every thought, every emotion, every feeling, every action, every memory is appearing to me. I'm something else altogether. Thank you, Sue. Jennifer, keep pecking, Baba. I'm here pecking back. I love that picture I got from the way you said that. Beautiful, yes. There is somebody pecking on the outside. There always has been. There's always been that mother hen, that mother love that has been guiding the process right from the get-go. This is about grace. It's not about personal effort. Grace may require some personal effort on your part, but that isn't what makes it happen. It is this grace. And what is grace? It's the truth of being. It's the truth of who you really are. It's not you as a sinner being given some special dispensation. It is simply the truth that you've always been. Know the truth will set you free, right? It's what Christ said. Well, the only way truth can set you free is if the truth is already that you're free, right? Truth can't take, the bondage and make you free. It reveals to you that you've always been free. That's the truth. That's why it's so different. So I'll keep pecking, Jennifer. Carl, hi GP. When we do feel that discomfort, how do we know when to take action on it, or if it's the mind coming on board? I find being present with the discomfort can numb it in the moment too. Confusing. Yeah, it can be. But I want you to notice something. I think you're advanced enough to get this. What is it that's asking, how do I know how to take action on it or not? Is it the mind? What's asking that question? Where's that question coming from? I mean, it sounds very legitimate. It sounds like I should know this. And then, because, being present with the discomfort numbs it in the moment. Right? Okay. That whole scene, right? Where's that coming from? Are you not aware of the discomfort? Okay, now that which is aware of the discomfort is it in discomfort. Now, this is very subtle, but look. And that question, how do we know? How do I know when to take action? Now, is that place of pure stillness that is aware of the discomfort, is it concerned about whether it knows to take action or not? Or is this the mind trying to figure it out? I find being present with the discomfort can numb it in the moment too. Right? Now, are you not aware of that numbing taking place? And the fact that something inside is trying to make the numbing of it or the going away of it or just kind of the suppressing of it into a problem. Notice that. Something's trying to say, that's a problem. It shouldn't be this way. One of the little tricks the mind uses when focus goes on to something is it numbs it. Or it can throw a rock in the bush. Or it can make it disappear altogether. Oops, don't want them finding that. All of these are what? It's very subtle, my friend. Right? And it's very fun ground to walk on because it's a different level of interaction for you. Right? How do I know when to take action? Who asked that question? Does God get up in the morning and go, God, what do I do today? Oh, should I do this or not? Does a tree do that? You see, embedded in that is the sense that there's an I, an ego, that is taking action. And it needs to know how to do it. And now it needs to know how to do it in a non-dual way, informed by the true self, right? Yeah. Take a close look at it, and you can see the whole structure of it is an attempt by the mind to create somebody taking action, but not knowing what action to take, and feeling paralyzed and numb, and I don't know what the hell to do. Confusing, right? Is space ever confused? Is the self ever confused? The mind trying to figure this out gets confused, because when the mind doesn't have a point of reference, how does it make any kind of choice? That's why it clings to belief systems. Prior to walking on this journey, you probably had a belief system that wouldn't even have bothered you. Just act, right? But now you start questioning it, and the minds go, well, how do I do it now? The mind is looking for a reference point in the mind, right? The only real reference point there is you, that which is aware of the activity of the mind. And the activity of the mind has nothing to do with you. All of a sudden, oh, this isn't even a problem, is it? It's just a ripple in consciousness, right, that got my attention and made me think it was important for a minute. Who's being present with the discomfort? Really, look at it. Awareness is present with everything, right? Doesn't matter what it feels like. It's with it whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, numb or not. Okay? I'm fine being present with it. Like, notice, awareness doesn't have to be present with something. It doesn't try to be present. It's presence itself. Everything is present with it. And you know that it's already there, because none of this could be happening if awareness wasn't there first. It has arisen in the awareness that is you. And that's the entire thing playing out. The discomfort, all the thoughts about the discomfort. Now, some of them are non-dual spiritual thoughts about the discomfort. So the way you worded your question, you were thinking that I've got to take action. Am I taking action from the mind, or am I taking action from myself? Right? You don't take action at all. Right? Both of those questions, that whole scenario is the mind trying to establish itself as somebody and create a problem, because that's what minds love to do. Is this clear, Carl? Have I gone too far? Hopefully you'll that'll sink in. Let me take a quick look down here to see if anything else has popped up. Not yet. Okay. So really chew on that, my friend. Chew on that, and you can become liberated from the whole thing. The whole antics and all of the confusion and all of the complexity that it tries to create as it tries to figure stuff out that it can't figure out. Neutrality. Do you have any tips to just let go? The mind seems really attached to various forms of thought, and the world highly encourages the nonstop chattering of the mind. Yes. First, foremost, let go of wanting to let go. I know it sounds like one of those weird, esoteric spiritual things, but just feel that energy of wanting to let go. Does that feel holy? Does it feel freeing? Notice that there's this subtle promise there. Man, if you can just let go, everything will be great. And so now it's got you engaged in this game of trying to let go. We cannot let go of anything we love, feel we need, right? So it isn't a process of letting go. It's a process of coming to understand what we're holding on to, why, and even more subtly, who's holding on to it. all of our attachments belong to our self-image, not to you. Right? And yes, the world highly encourages attachments, right? We make wars over attachments. We spend trillions of dollars on weapons protecting our attachments. Those attachments being resources and assets and stuff, as well as ideas, right? And beliefs. Right? So you're attached to various forms of thoughts. What that means is, right? And I'm just going to shift your perception here, right? I'm attached to various forms of thoughts is itself a thought, right? And that thought, I'm attached to various forms of thoughts, could only have come after those thoughts were appearing, right? I mean, if there were no thoughts there, there'd be no thought that says, I'm attached to that thought. The thought I'm attached to has to come first, right? So put aside the I'm attached to those thoughts and let's just look at the thoughts as they're coming, right? Which happens all the time, all day long, right? They say 72,000 of them. I don't know who counted or why, but that's what they say. Okay, so 72,000 thoughts are happening while you're awake. Well, including dreaming and all of that too. They have to include that. Anyway, now, this is prior to any thought that says I'm attached to these thoughts happened, right? So prior to that thought, I'm attached to these. Are you attached? Or are they just thoughts? You see how the mind works? It's incredibly subtle and actually kind of beautiful when you see it, because it's not a sentient entity that's like planning and plotting. It's a functioning. It's robotic. It's AI. So just look at the thoughts that the other thought says you're attached to. Just look at them, right? Without the thought of attachment. And you'll see now that the certain thoughts resonate. Right? Oh, okay. So this thought seems to have some importance or meaning to me. Okay. What is that? And does it really have that? Is what I think this is really what it is? So now you're really down in the dirt with it. You're down in the muck. You're looking at everything without the idea that you're attached. And find, because once you get out there, oh, now I'm attached, it all becomes about getting rid of the attachments. Well, the only reason it's there is because there's something here that's hooked you, right? Now, I don't have a problem with that, because I know if you look at what it is that hooks you, right? If you actually notice that it has hooked you, and then you start looking at, how am I hookable? Because no thought has sticking power. They don't have hands. They can't grab you, right? They can't grip anything about you. So we are holding them. Well, what's holding them? There's something about them that we like. There's something about them that seems true. They conform to our beliefs. Now, keep going with it, right? So where's the hook being set? It's always being set in who I think I am. It's always my sense of identity that gets hooked. And as long as I believe that sense of identity is me, it feels like I've been hooked, but you haven't. Right? It is always the idea the mind has of itself that gets hooked on ideas. This is why you can circumvent this whole superstructure of letting go and emotional release and all these kinds of things if you get to the sense of identity that is the only thing that allows it to be hooked. If that's not there, there is no hook. And it doesn't matter whether the thoughts are there or not. And that's what it really means to not be attached. It's not a me that's not attached to a thought. That's not possible. The sense of I, the finite sense of I, will always be attached to thoughts, because it's the thoughts that make it up. Without the thoughts, it doesn't exist. So you don't have to worry about these. You have to worry about this one thought, this one belief about myself, which is a bunch of beliefs, but it actually all goes down to one fundamental belief, which is I am the body. I am the body mind. That belief. And out of that, the entire superstructure of the identity. So go there. Go to the roots, right? Start looking at that. Who is it that is interested in this? Right? Who's the I, that set of beliefs that makes this interesting? And you can see it. Sometimes I look at, I see how popular horror movies are. And I go, how is this possible? Right? But there's a sense of I that loves that experience. Maybe it's, the only experience they have of being alive, right? And maybe their life is so drab that they just want to scare the shit out of themselves to feel something, right? But you can look at that and you go, well, what is it, right? Well, there's a sense of self there that's getting some kind of a reward there. But you can, when you look at things like that, you can see how absurd and actually self-destructive it is. Right? We're not so aware of that in ourselves, especially when we're on the spiritual journey, and our human personas have actually become more refined. They become more nuanced. They've become more subtle, right? But there's still this going on, right? So, are you following this? Okay? Because if you don't need to let go of the attachments, you need to let go of the one who's attached, because that one isn't really you. And as long as that remains, there will be attachments. You can't help it because the false sense needs that stuff in order to exist, because it doesn't have anything of its own. It isn't real. It has no substance. The real you is real. It is. It's self-referencing. It doesn't need anything to sustain it. The false self does. And that's what all attachments are. So don't worry about that. You don't even have to really worry about the thoughts. But whenever a thought comes up that gets your attention, you kind of take a step back and go, what in me is this appealing to? And be really willing to explore that all the way to the depths and really watch the whole process as it fills out. And when watching the whole process as it unfolds itself becomes more interesting than some spiritual goal of letting go, or some kind of psychological goal of letting go, right? Because that sounds superficial, right? When I want to know myself, I want to know what's really going on here becomes way more important than any of the rest of it. Now you're on the real path. You're on your way home, and there'll be no turning back. Thank you, neutrality. How to stop in a world that keeps moving. Yeah, find the point that isn't moving. The world can be spinning, right? The hub of a wheel never moves. Find in your life that which has never moved. That's what I point to in every single meditation. It's easy to find. I did it earlier. It's not hard to find. Just take a step back from thought, emotion, and sensation, which are the sum total of experience. That's where all the motion of the world is. That's where the world exists, into this place that's perceiving it. And you'll see that the perceiving has never moved. So you don't have to stop the world, I want to get off. You've never been on it. You have always been the center of the hub, believing yourself to be out on the rim, hanging on for dear life, like that little, push my granddaughter on that thing in the park all the time. But the kids like to hold it. And they say, spin around. Every now and then, some kid will walk to the center and stand there. No problem. How interesting. So, very good, neutrality. Kimberly, I enjoy your teachings. Hitting home. Great, fantastic. Right to the heart. Totally cool. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you for your intro. That touched me very, very much. You're welcome, Hendrik. Hello, Barbara and Lisa in Hamburg. Oh, wow. Way up north there in in Germany. Hello from Northern Kentucky, from Peggy. Hi, Peggy. There's Blinky Boo. Blinky Boo joining me at Satsang. The mind can be so crafty. Remember at school when a fight breaks out and the principal tries to disperse the crowd by shooing everyone away by saying, "Nothing to see here, move along." I swear this is what I hear in my mind. Yeah, when I'm perfectly present within, sort of, but there's agitation at times. Yes. Now, take a step back, right? Yeah, there's agitation there. And when there's agitation, the mind says, "Oh my God, there's agitation here. What are we going to do about this agitation? There's a problem, this agitation." What if you just took a step back and noticed the feeling of agitation? Then you notice that that feeling of agitation triggers a cascade of thoughts, right? Which is all the conditioning as to how to deal with this feeling of agitation, right? Including the notion that it's a problem that has to be gotten rid of, right? What if none of that actually even occurred to you? That whole cascading never happened. Even the word agitation didn't appear. What would you be feeling? It would just have a certain kind of feel to it. No judgment, no labeling, no good or bad, just a feeling, a sensation running through the body. This is the direct path. This gets you out of the mind all the way back to what is the actual experience that's happening. And you find, guess what? It's neutral. Okay? And then you see that the mind isn't crafty because that's a characteristic of intelligence, and it's not intelligent. It's a robot. It's well programmed, but it's not really crafty. Notice these are all words, and they're good. It's okay, and I use it too, right? I mean, the mind seems to be able to know what your next step is going to be, right? The mind seems to know that you're getting close to the truth, but it doesn't actually. It's a set of programs. That's all it is. And those programs were designed to keep you from looking in that place because it assumes that if you do, you're going to get hurt and hurt badly. That's all it is. It is protecting a sore spot. That's it. It's a layer of defense to try to keep something from happening again that it couldn't stop from happening before. That's all it is. Right? So, I swear that's what I hear in your mind. Yeah. You just say, well, thank you. Thank you for trying to protect me. God bless you. I don't want to fight you. I know you only have my best interest in heart. But I'm gonna take a look here, okay? If something's really wrong, you can, we'll do it. You can jump in and save the day, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm not a little kid anymore. Whatever it is you're trying to protect me from, let's take a look. Notice a completely different relationship, right? Because now you're actually using the nature of the energy system and rerouting it towards the goal of your emotional and spiritual freedom. This is inner reconciliation, by the way. That's what I call this process of doing that. But you're just flipping the script on it. So you're not fighting it anymore. So it doesn't have to defend against you. It will cooperate. And so that's all you have to do, right? Is just acknowledge, thank you for the job you've been doing. I mean, don't we all kind of want to hear that? And not be told, stop, leave me alone, right? Even when you're trying to do some good for somebody and they just push you off. Right? Ingrate. But if you see that that's all it is, it's like a puppy, a dog that's been trained to guard this thing, right? And you say, it's okay. You don't have to guard it anymore, right? It's okay. And you start giving them love. I mean, everything changes, right? So it's really the only way to get through a lot of these layers because it's already perfectly defended against all the crap you can throw at it. But nothing has a defense against unconditional love because you don't need one. And once you really understand what's happening, you realize it's unfathomably intelligent and beautiful. And then you begin to work with it as it actually is. This is the Tao. You're working with the Tao, the way things actually are. And as you do that, you become the master of it. And it's not as if, you just do what, you're resigned to whatever's happening. You're now actively, you're part of it. The creative and expressive impulse of the individual is seen to be the creative impulse of God. And that all of this serves that, right? And it will serve that once it knows it's safe to do it. Job one is keep the thing alive long enough to do something. If you can't do that, all the self and expression in the world is a moot point, right? Thank you, Blinky. Blinky Boo. David Yeager, glad you decided to not talk about what you're going to talk about in the intro, GP. This helped. And spontaneously, spontaneity. Yes, well, that's what spontaneity is. I had a feeling I wasn't going to. I try to put something there because just satsang with G, maybe I should just do that when I don't know. I thought, there's got to be something. And then within 2 seconds, I knew it was going to happen. I'll change the name after we're done here. It's pretty funny. Lisa, here's a recognition that it's getting calmer. Here is a recognition that it's getting calmer, more quiet, and egoless. But in the end, even that is an illusion. What's the point of an illusion when it is experienced as something that exists or happens? When you abide as that, then you let go of all stories about yourself and the world, and you are just here being, right? Let go. Let go. Wow, beautiful, 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 beautiful. Great question, Lisa. Let me give it a good answer. Now, the recognition that it's getting calmer, more quiet, and egoless, right? That what you are referring to is that the activity in the whole body-mind mechanism that we call the ego, which is a bunch of thoughts functioning as if they were a self, right? Right, is diminishing. It's less, and we experience that as a sense of more calm. You're slower to anger. You're kinder. Things don't bother you as much. You're more quiet. You're not as self-centered in your actions, which is egoless, right? And that's not an illusion, right? That's the perfume of the self appearing. Remember, an illusion isn't anything that I experience is an illusion. It's not true. The example I always use is the mirage in the desert, right? Somebody's in the desert, they see the oasis, so there are people swimming, and there's Mai Tais, and it's all wonderful, and beach chairs and stuff, right? That's not there. There is no oasis there, right? But the sand is there. The sun's there. The heat's there. The sweat's there. The thirst is there. The airwaves, the heat rising from the sand and distorting the air, that's all there. They're not an illusion. The mirage is. So the quiet and the calm and the egolessness are not an illusion. The illusion is that the calm, quiet, and the egolessness belong to a person. The illusion of all of this is that all of my experience is the result of a world out there acting on me. That's the illusion. The illusion is a misperception. What you experience and call the world is, in fact, the self. That is God. It is God experienced, God the one experiencing. The entire thing is the self, right? The idea that this I is a body in a world is the illusion. Now notice, you take that away, nothing changes, right? When you know that the mirage is a mirage, you don't stop seeing it because the mind's projecting what it wants onto this here, but you know it's not now. And so you don't kill yourself by heading towards something that you know isn't there. So the illusion of the world makes all sorts of promises of things that are out there, but you realize they're not out there. That's the illusion. It's so important to see that, right? The snake is the illusion, not the rope. You don't need to kill the rope. And when you see that there is no snake, it's only a rope, you don't need to kill a snake anymore. That's why the snake and the rope is such a great metaphor they've used in India forever. Understanding what the illusion is. Right? The illusion is a sense of self, of somebody getting more calm, more quiet and egoless. Right? The sense of a person that this is happening to. But if you see it instead as the person is dissolving, and in its place, there's this emerging of this sweet perfume of the self. More love, more compassion, more energy, more self-expression. And those are attributes not of a person, but of the true self. So what you're seeing is the perfume, but you can't see the flower. You're seeing the attributes arising from the self, but the self itself cannot be seen. And so those attributes that are clearly seen, right, are no longer an illusion because we don't see them as somebody. We see them as the reality, as the manifest reality, as God and creation as one and immanent, not as God as creator of something separate from himself, but creation as the very presence of God herself. When you abide as that, you let go of all stories about yourself. Yeah, more accurately, if you're really abiding as that, the stories about who you thought the sense of who you thought you were will begin to fall away, and with it all the stories about it. You'll find that sense of self was nothing but a bunch of stories. They weren't stories about you at all. They were stories about a story. It was an onion that had no center. It was all layers. There was nothing in the middle, right? And the true self is that which has been witnessing the whole thing the whole time and has never been touched by any stories and doesn't need it. That's not the self the stories were about. Because the mind, the mechanism that creates those stories cannot see the self because it's not an object to be seen. The self sees the mind. The mind does not see the self. It can't. It's just a bunch of functions. And so you see that false sense of self is a story that has stories about it and stories about the stories and stories about the stories. But as that fundamental primary story falls away, so does everything goes with it. Because it's the linchpin. It's the foundation on which everything else is built. You take that out and the whole house of cards just comes crashing down. So you only need to let go of any thought that claims you are not the perfect, infinite, immortal, eternal self. That's all you have to do. Any thought that appears, that presents a different picture of you, you don't have to let go of it, right? Because it actually can't hold on to you. You just have to see it for what it is. Oh, it's referring to somebody that's not me. So thank you. No, thank you. Does that help, Lisa? Great question. Really helped me get a nice answer for that. Oh, Tatiana, so good to see you. Heart for you too. Susha, seeking here and there. Thank you, GP. Ego is really a servant, not a master. The functioning that we have attributed to an ego is your servant. It's human life. It's all life. What could be better, right? And the ego is simply thinking It's a ghost in the machine, thinking that the functioning is actually a sentient being. That's all there is to it. That is all there is to it. There is no being there. There is a functioning, but no self. The self, the sense I am, basically projected itself on the functioning and got lost. But even the sense I am is perceived by that which is beyond. And this whole process is that the I am is turning around and coming back home. It's the prodigal son coming back home to be welcomed with loving arms into the house of the Father. So, thank you, Mary. Thank you, Sue. Sally, hello, GP and everyone. Sally, what's the difference between feeling your feelings and observing them? It's actually the same. It's just that the feelings are there and you feel them. And they're just there, right? There's nothing you have to do about it. You have to make yourself feeling. It's effortless. They're just there. Now the question is, do we react to the feelings or do we watch them, right? So the feeling is kind of the ground, right? They're there, right? How do we respond to them? Do we respond to them, the cascade of conditioning, right? Because every feeling that comes up has got a program associated with it, gets triggered so that there's a set of behaviors that happen after the fact, right? When we're not aware of that, it happens reflexively, and we think this is just the way it is, right? But when we do become aware of it, the feeling is there, we are feeling it, but then we just feel it, right? Nothing else. No reaction, no going off in some pattern, no trying to get rid of it, transcending it, analyzing it, nothing like that. We're just feeling it, which is exactly the same as observing, which means I am just staying present with it and at the same time observing how the whole triggering mechanism wants me to do something. It wants to color it. It wants to narrate it. It wants to judge it. It wants to categorize it. It wants to analyze it, right? All of those mental activities that get cascaded off of that. And we say, well, no, none of that. I'm just going to stay present with it. That's it. I'm just going to watch it. Right? So you can see that I'm feeling and I'm just feeling or observing. They're the same, right? Now, obviously, the feeling is a vibration. There's a ripple going on, right? And that's just there, right? And the very fact that it's present on one level, you're observing it, you're feeling it, right? So at the level when we're talking about observing as a spiritual act, we're talking about just staying with the feeling and not putting anything else on top of it, including a name, right? The truth of the matter is the majority of our feelings are so subtle and diverse that we really don't have names for them. We kind of sum them up. They're similar. They end up being categories of a name. So we say, well, that's hate, right? Or that's grief, or that's disappointment. But when you really look closely, it's not a single thing. It's very complex and actually quite beautiful. So you stay with the feeling. It unfolds as the feeling. And staying with it and observing it without doing anything but being present with it, a different kind of knowing emerges. A kind of a direct understanding of it, right? That isn't analytical and isn't a programmed response. You're really touching the wisdom of life itself at that point, because you are life itself looking at itself. You're God looking at God. Beautiful, isn't it? Right? So does that help, Sally? Does that help? And thank you for bringing that up, because I like being really precise about the words, because the more precise you are, the more refined you can get in bringing people's attention to the subtleties, which is a lot of what this is all about. This is beautiful, GP. Beyond opposites, yeah. Even Meister Eckhart, the Christian mystic, right, who didn't get burned at the stake because he was a man, he was a priest, and he was so popular they didn't They didn't try him for heresy until after he was dead, which is really, really funny. He even made the incredible statement and got away with it in the Catholic Church that man and God both emerged from the same ineffable ground of being, beyond all opposites, which is why the mind cannot grasp it. You cannot know it in that sense. You can only be it, because that is you. You are that which is beyond all opposites, which is why you can't know yourself here. But you still know I am. Hey, Roberto. So good to see you. Mary, isn't our past lives still the stories we are telling about ourselves because we are not yet aware of the one experiencing them? Yes. And there's no, look, if I have a sense of a personal self and I go through my whole life thinking I am this body mind, I don't die. Consciousness doesn't end then. What's it going to happen? There's that energy will create another body mind to identify with. Of course, over and over again. We call that reincarnation. We make a big deal out of it. But yes, it is simply the consciousness continues to dream. That's it. And yes, it will continue to do that until the attention goes, until that something, pecks from the outside and breaks through that, so that within one of those lifetimes, somebody goes, wait a minute, hold on, time out. Is this what I am? Consciousness begins to awaken, right? How many thousands of lives, could there be? Millions, right? But at some point you kind of go, well, even all of that, it's speculative and it's not important. Thank God it's not important, right? But yes, the human life is like a dream that has dreams within it and phases within it, right? So when this dream ends, another one starts, until the one having the dream wakes up to its own nature, that it's simply been Vishnu, the God Vishnu, asleep on the ocean, the infinite ocean of being. Aleister Crowley, people were telling me, yeah, he was the Bernstein House. Yes. I had a student who, I mean, it was as if she was there. I mean, beautiful lady, about 80 years old. Just this area in her life that was just still grinding away. Just this most angelic character. And so we just started exploring it, and she was describing the house, and I mean, it was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing, and it freed her, right? And so we just kind of have to deal with the energy as it comes. Again, it could have been, I've had the inner reconciliation started when I had a kind of a waking dream, a vision, right, of sitting in a room full of Secret servicemen. Now, were there Secret Servicemen there? Was that from a past life? The important thing is that metaphorically, it was a very clear message, right, that I've gotten from a disowned part of myself. And what you'll find is that God and the entire universe are simply disowned aspects of yourself because you think you're the body mind, whereas the entire universe is your body. So these kinds of things about reincarnation, they're interesting, but don't get lost in them. All you have to deal with is whatever comes up in the moment. And if you're in the inquiry with the moment and it presents you a picture of past life, you go, okay, great. What do we need to release this? Right? What energy is this holding on? Right? Because that's all that matters. It's about the freedom. It's, not about if I know who I was or where I lived at some point, or I was somebody important or somebody utterly insignificant, which is most of us most of the time. What is the message here? And of course, the message is coming up because there is the need, the deep desire throughout all of life for freedom. And that's why it's there, to set itself and you free. So thank you for Thank you for telling me that, guys. Yeah, I never remember the name. Everybody knows who it is. Thank you for the correct spelling, Susha. Whatever is not you will eventually fall away. Thank you for this, GP. You're very welcome. Which is why we don't have to go on a damn witch hunt. We don't have to be renunciates. We don't have to be whipping ourselves, right? Just stick to the plan. Come to know yourself. Desire freedom. Be willing to look. And that which isn't you will simply fall away. The moment you see it isn't you, you're not going to you don't hold on to it anymore. If you think it's you hold on, period. Right? So you can't peel anything away. You can't force stuff away. You can't make somebody give up let go of that. You can't. You can't as long as it has the meaning. Once the meaning is gone, it's gone. That's how you do it. That's why it's such a gentle, heart-based path. It is so easy. Call it the lazy man's religion. I don't want to work that hard. Brother G, Brother Brent, if there's no separate self that goes from one life to the next, would seeing your mother in a new form be particularly some scar that is karmically played in another life? Could be. You know, it's part of the overall dream, right? Dreams within dreams with the dreams. The dream is that I exist as someone, a being. That dream forms the fundamental vasanas or repository consciousness. And every life is a dream manifesting that dream of I am someone. So they're all dreams. This one's a dream. The dream of her, of meeting my mother, right? Because my mother was part of the dream. And so meeting her in another form is also part of the dream. So again, don't put anything solid and absolute about any of this stuff because none of it's real. As Balyani put so brilliantly, God takes the last step in the journey that never happened. Okay? Now, please don't get confused by that. If that goes over your head, just forget about it. It's not important. You know, these are just a million different ways in which we have to try to address ourselves at whatever level we happen to be at to bring it to the next level, to the point at which all the levels fall away. And the entire thing, every past life, Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma, they're all gone in the dream. They're all you. Every life has been you. Not only this life, every life has been you. The tree outside your window, the leaf falling from that tree, the squirrel that's running across, the mosquito you swatted yesterday. They're all you. These are all the disowned you, every lifetime, everyone's lifetime, every planet, the whole universe. There is nothing other than the one, and you are that one. So, yeah, we can enjoy this part of the game and play it skillfully. Right? Ultimately, it all falls away into just the infinitude of your being. And the infinite has no form. Virginia. Hello, Virginia. Hi, I remember you saying before you met your mother as a baby, how did you know if it was her, I may ask? She called me son, 2-year-old. It's a long story, but she just started, from the day when she saw me, there was just like this something. And every time I go visit her, she'd bring me dolls, she'd take care. Nobody else. She'd put a blanket over me. If it was chilly, she'd be feeding me. I mean, I was just the center of attention. She had a bunch of characteristics that my mother did, and then one night, I told her I have to go, and I said goodbye, and she says, she said, "Mi hijo," which is Spanish. She didn't speak English. Spanish for my son. And I just kind of. So, as far as this dream story is going, the evidence was pretty convincing. Convinced everybody. I mean, everybody saw this. Go, what the hell is she doing? right? And nobody else should she do this. Actually, most men, she wouldn't have anything to do with. So it was really quite stunning. And then they would ask her, does she like clean a lot? And I said, yeah, like 2 years old, pulls a chair over to the sink and does the dishes, right? And my mother was a fanatical. She was obsessive with cleaning and the like. So there's all these characteristics that were still there, right? These personal characteristics that were still there. Could I be reborn as my mother or family member? Sure, any combination is possible, but realize that you already are. You already are that. Please, let's not get wrapped up in an interesting story and then come up with all sorts of ideas about reincarnation, because reincarnation presupposes there was an incarnation in the first place. It says that I'm someone who entered into a body, right? Let me be really, really, really specific. The idea of reincarnation means there is a world that exists and I get born in and out of it. It is self-existent. I come and go. Right? What's your actual experience? Your actual experience at the moment of birth is a world appears to you. You don't. Later on, they tell you you came into the world and you get this idea that the world's always been here and you came and going. But it isn't your case. You have never left. The world has come and gone multiple times. You never incarnated in the first place. The body was always an image, always something in a spontaneous arising in consciousness with which it got identified, but you were never in it. There was never an incarnation in the first place. And the you that is going from lifetime to lifetime is also an illusion being perceived by God herself. This is God's dream. This is what's symbolized by Vishnu asleep on the infinite ocean of being, and out of his navel is growing a lotus, and on that lotus is Brahman. And every time Brahman blinks, a universe goes out of existence and a new one comes into existence. And this goes on for 1,000 years. The lotus shrinks back into Vishnu's navel. Another one grows. Brahma appears again. Every time he blinks, there's a universe. This is what it's pointing at, right? Universe upon universe upon universe upon universe upon universe. And the ultimate Brahman is that which is beyond all of it. That which actually is. In order there to be a dream, there must be something there that isn't dreaming. Something, because the dream is all imaginary, it's all subjective, it's all fictitious, right? There must be something that is real. Right? The illusions can't deceive themselves. There must be something there. What is you? What are you? What is it that's actually there? What is it that is? I mean, that's what even science is trying to find. They keep breaking things down and find it, whatever they break down, there's something else, right? And that what they broke down was only an appearance of the activity of that something else. What's the something else that is actively doing all of this? Well, they keep looking, thinking they're going to find something, right? Instead of looking at the one who's looking. It is consciousness. You are that which is. That's why Mooji always refers to it as what is. What is. This is, you can call it the self, but that doesn't even work as a word, really. So on that note, let me just not, let's not get caught up in it. The stuff can come up in the process, especially of inner reconciliation, because it opens all of those doors. Which is a healing modality primarily, and a spiritual practice as well, to help with the sadhana, the awakening, pre and post awakening process. But let's not get wrapped up in the details. Remember, this is simply about discovering who you really are, and who you really are is that from which even Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva have arisen. Since there is no time? Yes, you could be reborn in the future, in the past, different planets. Time is meaningless. Time comes with the incarnation. There is no time. Time is created by the events. Space is created by objects. There is no space. There is no distance. It too is an illusion. And we know it's an illusion, even looking at it physiologically. Right? We don't experience space. You're looking at an image in your head. Right? And so the sense of space, while it's perceived to be outside and it's believed to be outside, you don't perceive it out there. You perceive it in here. The distance, you look in a dream, you can look up into a mountain. It's nowhere out there. There's no distance at all. Right? So where's the distance between you and what and this point of perception? Zero. There is no distance. So yes, yeah, different planet, different time. 10 million years ago, 10 million years in the future, all of this happens spontaneously. And you realize, of course, as human beings, we have to have some of the stories. I mean, what I'm doing here is I'm throwing all of the stories out. You have none left. But human beings need their stories in order to function, right? It's part of the thing. And so it's okay to gradually begin to see through the thing that none of this is real. All of it is illusory. All there is yourself. Not the person you think you are, but you are the one. And I don't mean Neo. Those of you who get that joke. Jerry, say GP and everyone, a bit late, but I'm here now. All right. I won't send you to the principal's office. I feel like I see clearly that there is no separateness and that I'm home. So many trapped sensations are coming to the surface, especially in my face. It's a lot. It makes me want to isolate myself. And I feel like I'm unavailable to fully let go when I'm around apparent others because I'm scared that those energies will be released around them. This makes sense. Oh, it sure does. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. There's part of it that says, you know what? I don't want to have a total meltdown in the parking lot of BF Chang's. That actually happened to me once when I was studying EFT at a trauma seminar, learning how various ways of working with deep traumas. And one of mine came up right in the middle of a parking lot, just complete breakdown, complete meltdown. What are you going to do? I went inside and had lunch. I think I had the Buddha's feast or the broccoli or something. What are you going to do, right? It may happen, right? Don't try to control it, right? You can see that the ego is trying to maintain a sense of identity by making you afraid that you're going to break down, right? Your energy system's way smarter than that, I was only when I broke down in that parking lot, and I'm just sobbing, right? Because I just connected to something that I had just completely disassociated from, and it had disassociated me from a lot of feelings in a lot of areas. It was just a total meltdown. I was just, tears are pouring. I don't understand it. And people are looking. I didn't give a shit at that time. The release was so sweet. It's just like my eyes all puffy and red. I went inside and had a nice vegetarian meal. I was hungry after that too. So it's no big deal if it does happen. Who cares? It ultimately it doesn't really matter. And it's just, the ego wants to save face, and that's okay. But your nervous system is smart enough that it's not going to purposely humiliate you, right? But if the moment comes and that opportunity for freedom is there, are you not going to want to take it? Are you going to want to say, I'll get back to you later? Fuck it. No, I want it. Thank you. Bring it. Bring it. I don't care where I am, right? When we're talking about what's at stake, right? Yeah. So they make it, and you're just going to have to say, if this is what you need to do, you just put it inside yourself. Guys, if this is what you need to do to set us free, do it. Do it. I like to tell the story about George Harrison, but he knows who he was. Early on in his spiritual life, when he recognized, about overcoming all karmic weight and all that stuff, that was kind of the spiritual tradition he was in. He made a decision early on. He says, okay, if I have to go through a bunch of shit to free myself from this karma, bring it on. I don't care what it is. Bring it on. I'll do it all in this lifetime. Very courageous move. And of course he did. He ended up having a lot of problems. His money went down for a while. It was the releasing of some particular anthology or something that got his resources back up. He and Ringo never had as much as John and Paul. And then he got sick and he died young, died in his 50s, right? And so he had a lot of stuff happen. He just said, fine, bring it on. He was perfectly willing to do that. Beautiful, beautiful heart, not the kind of thing you find in a rock star, right? But he was not your average rock star. So yeah, it's just this willingness to go, all right, whatever you need. I'm not calling the shots here. Right? I have made my case. I want to be free. Whatever you guys need to do that, whatever needs to be released, whatever I need to experience, whatever I need to know, bring it. That's the humble surrender. No, that's even more than a surrender. That's a submission to the truth. Right? It becomes more important than anything. And yeah, the fear will be there. The ego, I don't want to be embarrassed. You go, I don't either. But, I put my trust in grace. It's not going to push me beyond where I can really go. It's not going to hurt me in any way. It may hurt, but it's not going to hurt me, right? It's liberating me, right? So take that to heart, Jerry's. Take that deep into your heart. And I know you can feel the relief from it. I can feel you feeling the relief from that. So, oh yeah, just surrender and trust in the divine hand, right? Remember, grace comes from divine love. God's nature is love. It is the essence of love. It is non-dual love. It is love that loves everything equally. It is more than an emotion. It can't be put into words. It's one of those things that's beyond all opposites. It's beyond our ideas of love and hate, right? So we call it love because it's pure love, but it's beyond all of it. And that is the grace that will press the buttons. And you just say, press them. Beautiful. Beautiful. MJG had a lot of shaming in childhood. I know that one. This manifested in social phobia and vicious inner critic. Now in my 40s, I have health problems that I'm sure result from a lifetime of shame. Please advise. MJG. Beautiful. Yes, I did too. And it caused unbelievable amount of suffering in my life. And I spent day before yesterday. I spent about 5 hours over coffee with my sister and her partner. And she knew me from the time I was born. She was 13 when I was born. And the various kinds of things that my mother did, and her relentless intrusion and the like. And as I mentioned before, how important my sister was to me, because she was kind of this only place I felt any kind of sense of being wanted or loved. And it created in me the Artful Dodger, right? That wasn't social phobia overtly. As long as I had everybody's attention, right? And I could manipulate the room, I was good. But intimacy, oh God, I was terrified of Anybody began to get close, I headed for the hills. I just couldn't let anybody get into that space. And it took a very long time, to finally work. Even after an enormous spiritual awakening at 19 years old, it was many, many years before all of it began to just kind of fall away. And yes, it can surface as health problems, right? Because the stuff is stored in the body. So the first thing to do is to well, I highly recommend inner reconciliation to you, because it's a way of reestablishing a different kind of relationship with all of the stuff. It's an acknowledgement that this shit really did happen. Now, the phobia, the vicious inner critic, what are they? Right? Let's look at those a little bit more closely. When you're the child and you've been that horribly shamed, what's the last thing you want to do? You don't want to make yourself visible. You don't want anybody to see you, right? Because if you're seen, you're going to get shamed. So you're going to become as invisible and wallflower as you possibly can, right? Or you're going to become, and there's different ways to do it. I did it through being the Artful Dodger, through being manipulative, and I used wit and charm, right? But I was socially phobic. I mean, I was scared to death. If I couldn't take control of the conversation, I didn't know what the hell to do. Right? Either that or get stoned, right? And if I got stoned, I could just, I didn't have to deal with it, which was my go-to thing, right? So, but you can see what happens is because as the child, they have no other alternative. They cannot deal with the shame. And for them, the shaming is true. They have to believe that what mom and dad are telling them are true, that all the shaming is because they're bad, right? So how do you keep yourself from being socially there, socially available? Well, first off, you're phobic about it. You're scared to death to do it. And another technique that the nervous system develops is this inner voice to keep telling you how horrible you are. Now, what does it do? It keeps that in place. If you're that horrible, that you need to be criticized, that the shaming was true, you don't ever even want to try to be in social circumstances, right? So that's what's happening. Now, I want you to pay really close attention to that, because notice, none of that's you. All of that is how your nervous system adapted to an environment that was dangerous, that was literally life-threatening and soul-threatening. And so what you're dealing with is a mechanism that got put in place when it needed to be there, but because it developed the assumption that this was the way things are and always will be, it's still operating, right? And so now if you look at that, does this help to just take a step back and look, oh, this is how my whole body mind was trained to be in order to protect me? So that the real me, which didn't deserve shaming and doesn't really have a problem with social contact and others, could remain safe enough to make it into adulthood. Okay? And now you see what it really is about. Now, if you just try to force it to happen, it'll just resist and it'll win every time. So the whole process of inner reconciliation is creating a space that is so safe that the nervous system itself will recognize that its defensive strategy isn't needed anymore, and the defenses will begin to come down. That's the only way you can deal with it. That's why I say it's a reconciliation. You may have heard me earlier talking to somebody about just saying, well, if this is what comes up, say yes, it's okay. So yes, you're there, it's okay, right? So you can see how you're shaming yourself for having social phobia and a vicious inner critic, and you're blaming yourself for the vicious inner critic. But that shaming of yourself for the critic and blaming yourself is the critic. That's all. It's a brilliantly self-correcting system. It's just off the charts brilliant, right? It's covered every exit, right? Except the exit of self-acceptance and love, to find the you that can be accepted. And you already have, you're aware of it. What is it that's aware of it, right? That's the first step in awakening. And if you start doing that and reconciling with it, you can even use a little tapping to help it along. That's why I use it for. It will not only begin to bring that down, but it'll start as a result, as the defenses come down, the energy begins to be freed up. That includes the energy that is in the body. Now, as somebody who is not a doctor, I cannot tell you this is the miracle cure. You just have to do this. It'd be irresponsible for me to do that, but I have seen it happen. I've seen it right in front of my very eyes. People had symptoms; they just disappeared. Right? Because, and when you listen to somebody who's a real MD like Gabor Mate talk about it, this isn't controversial. The childhood trauma creates these various serious illnesses as we get older, because the body simply cannot contain that energy anymore. It starts leaking out the side, and part of it is simply that the real you, the one that got so bent out of shape, the one that got so compressed and contained in the environment that because it needed to protect itself from the horrific things that were going on, is still there and wants to be free. That's why you're here, because that in you that is the real you wants the freedom to come out and play. So God, I hope that helps. If you want to send an email to support@gpwalsh.com, I can give you some more information about inner reconciliation and the tapping that I do. And I've got a program growing right now. If it's only $27, tapping into the fearless you. That also gives you a month free with me and the Tappist monks. But it's the kind of thing that you have to retrain yourself. It's not like, oh, this is because remember, the nervous system really believes this is a necessity, that it cannot let it go. So it can take some time for it to see, oh, I can let this go. I don't need to be this defended anymore. And then you won't have to worry. You just find yourself being more confident in social situations. There'll be little ones, right? But you'll notice it. And you just kind of keep going with it, keep going with it until finally those walls really do come down, as they will. Remember, it isn't stuck because it wants to. It still thinks it has to protect you. It's like those soldiers in the South Pacific that were still fighting the war years after it was over. It didn't know the war was over. We have to show it the war is over. And the moment it does, because its nature is completely adaptive, the moment the environment changes, it will begin to adapt to it. That's its nature. It can't help it. It's like water. Whatever you pour it into, it takes that shape. And tapping is a very powerful agent for helping that happen, because it delivers the message to the body that it's safe totally through touch. It goes around the mind where it can disagree and argue with it. It just bypasses it altogether. It goes right to the body and says, you're safe. That's why I use it. So, gosh, I hope that helps. MJG. And thank you for bringing that to me. Winky Boo, Satsang with GP is a new meaning to Sunday. GP, do you have an email for contact? Yes. support@gpwalsh.com. Very easy to remember. We monitor that. I actually, we're currently working on setting something up. So a couple of people on my team, namely Lisa and Sally, will be fielding calls from people to help with curriculum and what kind of things would be necessary to just kind of help me, because I get kind of inundated sometimes. So thank you, Winky, Jennifer, Lisa. Lovely expression of my true self. Yes. Isn't it great to meet yourself? Once again, G, deep thanks and gratitude for the precious gift. Thanks to you guys. Thank you. I start working 10 minutes. Thank you, G. And chat. Thank you, G. Thank you, G. What a great song. Deeply resonating. Yes, Lisa told, you are the expression of myself. That's why it's resonating so deeply. I am you telling you about you. That's what it is. As Balyani put it, the message is he, the messenger is he, and the one to whom the message is sent is he. The message is God. The messenger is God, and the one to whom the message is sent is God. Ah, Jerry's, thank you. I'll take that to my heart. It is freeing to just let go into the beloved. Yes, it is. And that beloved is infinitely and unceasingly loving. Thank you all. I promised myself I'm not going to go over, and then I do. Yes, Balyani is marvelous. He's a Sufi mystic. For those of you who haven't heard it, you can look him up. His most important work is available online. I bought it as a book because I just want to have it, and I want to support the institute that is translating it and the like. So, Atlasias, thank you, G. You're welcome. And Marie, infinite gratefulness. Well, thank you to all of you. Thank you. You have no idea how it means to me. All right, everyone. Love you all. Bye. Oh, thank you, MJG. Wow, thank you. Namaste, everyone.